Welcome to Surrender School. So our mission statement at Surrender School, we recover. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions with those who want a healthy relationship with food. We are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do try to adhere to the spirit of the traditions because they are brilliant. If Surrender School has helped you in any way, please consider donating. There's a donate button at the bottom of our landing page on the website. Okay, let's take a minute, come into the room where we actually are. Feel your breath going in and out. Maybe take a couple of deep breaths. Put your feet on the floor, and I will say the set-aside prayer for us. God, help us to set aside everything we think we know to leave space for what we have yet to learn. Okay. Today's topic is spiritual principles of the 12 steps, which I'm going to take in a teeny tiny little bit different direction. Okay. So one of my favorite quotes out of the big book, and you've probably heard this at least twice so far, is page 27, where Bill says, ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces, the values of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives, a new set of values begin to dominate them. So I got a couple of questions. What are your values? What do you believe in? Really believe in? What personal code do you live by? What is your personal code of conduct? What ideals do you try and live up to? What underlying values motivate your behavior? And what principles dominate you and your actions? So those are some good journaling questions to really get at the heart of what your values are. When I am active in my food addiction, everything else in my life becomes secondary. Doesn't matter what it is. My values and motives are very different in my disease than when I am in recovery, because in my disease, nothing matters more than the food and my effect. Nothing. My world shrinks down to this little thing. It shrinks down to just the thoughts about, I'm going to binge. I'm not going to binge. I can't believe I just binged. How can I hide this binge? I hate myself. Tomorrow I'm not going to binge. And that is my whole life. And I repeat it over and over and over. There isn't room for anything else in my life. So when the big book talks about a new set of conceptions and motives, I think Bill is talking about values, codes of conduct, fundamental changes in the way we see things, changes in how we behave, how we think about and how we treat other people. So in essence, he is talking about how we approach life. So I'm going to ask you again, What are your values? What principles do you live by? What does it mean to live a spiritual life? What does that mean? We throw that word around an awful lot in program, but what does it mean to you to live a spiritual life? Now, the OA 12 and 12 lays out a spiritual principle for every single step. I love this about the OA 12 and 12. So the principle for step 1 is honesty. In my disease, I am fundamentally dishonest with myself and everybody else, and my higher power, to be honest. The spiritual principle for step 2 is hope. Now, in my disease, I am utterly hopeless. Utterly hopeless. The spiritual principle for step 3 is faith. In my disease, the only thing I truly believe in is food and its effect on me. That's really all I believe in when I'm active in my disease. Step 4, the spiritual principle is courage. And in my disease, I'm frozen in fear. That's it. I'm paralyzed in my disease. The spiritual principle for step 5 is integrity. In my disease, I don't live in alignment with what I say my values are. I don't have any integrity. Step 6, the spiritual value is willingness. In my disease, my attitude is one of stubborn refusal. Stubborn refusal, stubborn rebellion. Step 7, the spiritual principle is humility. And in my disease, I am either the best or the worst. I'm never just one of many. I'm never just another bozo on the bus. I'm either here or I'm either there, but never just one of humanity. Step 8, the spiritual principle is self-discipline. In my disease, I am self-indulgent. I always choose the easier, softer way. Step 9, the spiritual principle is love. And I had to think about this for a minute in my disease. In my disease, I am indifferent. I am not loving, I am indifferent. I don't care about anyone else. Step 10, the spiritual principle is perseverance. In my disease, I give up. F it, every turn of the corner. F it, I'm done. What the hell? Step 11, the spiritual principle is spiritual awareness. In my disease, I am the center of the universe, not my higher power. I am the center of the universe. I am not aware of anything else. And step 12, the spiritual principle is service. And in my disease, I am a tornado in people's lives. I don't help others, I hurt them. So recovery for me has been about discovering what values I truly believe, and then trying to live in alignment with those values, trying to have integrity between what I say I believe and how I act, what my actions say I believe. The big book calls it practicing these principles in all our affairs. 2 quotes that I really like remind me that this process is not a destination. The first quote I like is from Will Durant, and he says, We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. We are what we repeatedly do. How's that for you? Not what we say we're going to do, but what we do. The second quote is from Aristotle. And he says, moral virtues, like crafts, are acquired by practice and habituation. The big book, of course, puts it this way: progress, not perfection, right? We practice our values. As part of my 11th step nightly review, I ask myself and my higher power, what did I do well today? What needs work? And what can I do tomorrow to improve just a little bit? So what values do you live by? They may come from your religious practice, or from a philosophical ideology, or from the spiritual values that I just talked about underlying the steps. Wherever the values come from, just as long as they mean something to you and they're worth working for. Okay, Linda. So what the hell does this have to do with abstinence, right? That's what we're here for, Linda. Okay. First, and most importantly, I think, this is all part of our spiritual awakening. It's part of the spiritual awakening that is going to allow you to cope with life without self-medicating with food. Developing a spiritual code to live by, getting really clear on your values, and then trying to live in integrity with them are all part of the spiritual path to your awakening. So that's the first thing this has to do with abstinence. The second thing, less important, but still cool all the same, is the science-based reason. So there's two science-based reasons for looking at abstinence through the lens of values. Overall, when we are engaging with life on a spiritual basis, living our lives for something greater than ourselves, living our lives for something greater than ourselves, we can much better endure hardship, obstacles, pain. I mean, we've all heard about the studies that have been done with wounded soldiers. They need less pain medication than civilians with similar injuries because the soldiers are fighting for a greater cause. There is purpose for their suffering. And I want to tell you, there is a purpose for our suffering. We can be great forces of good in our communities if we so choose. Another science-based reason to focus on values and living a spiritual life is pretty simple. Humans, when we make little improvements that require some effort on our part, we benefit in being able to make other improvements. For example, putting effort into stopping gossiping, that can help you be abstinent. Humans build success on success. We gain steam and momentum from doing these kinds of positive efforts. We develop self-discipline through this practice, and it sort of spreads out to other areas of our lives. So it works like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets, the more it can do. So this is yet another reason why setting ourselves up for success is so important for abstinence. Because if we continue to, prepare our breakfast the night before and write down our food for the next day, okay, those are the two things we're doing. But that helps us with momentum, that little self-discipline helps us with the momentum of following through on the next day. We build on those little successes, instead of getting into bed, saying to yourself, oh crap, I forgot to write down my food for tomorrow, rolling over and going to sleep. We get out of bed, we go back into the kitchen, we write down what our food's going to be for the next day, and then we can go to bed again, and we have this positive feeling that we can build on for the next day. I know it sounds simplistic, but let's face it, kids, we are just a little bit more complicated pigeons. We react to this stuff in a positive way. We might as well use it to our benefit. Okay, now we're going to get a little woo-woo. So the Stoic philosophers have a word for this process, this progress, not perfection, this trying to live our values, trying to live in integrity with our values. They have one word for it, and it's called Arete. A-R-E-T-E. A-R-E-T-E. Arete. And it means, literally, excellence through virtue. Excellence and abstinence come from practicing our spiritual values, practicing these principles in all our affairs. To me, that's what Arete means when I have a little necklace with that word on it. And what that means to me is practicing these principles in all our affairs. So every morning, the first thing I do in my quiet time with my higher power is I say my Arete prayer. And if you would like, I will say it with you guys right now. So if you want to sit back, get comfy, and I will say the prayer. You want to close your eyes, that's fine. Higher power, may I be wise. May I seek my higher power's guidance, and may I act on that guidance. May I have self-mastery. May I be disciplined, persistent, and consistent. May I be courageous. May I be willing to feel the fear and discomfort and not self-medicate with food. May I be loving. Love and tolerance is my code. May I be hopeful. May I believe in myself and my abilities, and may I act accordingly. May I be grateful for all that I have and all that I am. Amor fati. May I be curious, always growing, always learning, deeply and fully engaged in life. May I be zesty, a strong, healthy, vibrant, dangerous old woman. Amen. So make your own Arete prayer with the values that you think are most important to you. And then you ask help every morning from your higher power to live those values today. Okay. So here's the question for today. Here's the question for today. What are your values, and are you living them? Where are you making excuses for your addict behavior? In other words, where are you making it okay to not live your values? What excuses to give yourself for not living your values? Okay, I'll set the timer. And you've got 5 minutes.
Thanks for recovering with us.